Welcome to the new school. My name is Fabio Parasecoli, and I'm the coordinator of the Food Studies program here. The program started in 2008, and now it has developed into, a pretty big set of classes during 3 semesters. They cover topics from history to policy to health, nutrition, media. And all the classes, by the way, are open to the general public for continuing education. So if any of you is interested in specific topics, just go to our website, and we have a pretty big offering now. We're turning our program into a full major minor. This is very exciting. We're now working to prepare the documentation for the state. And we're also working towards a specialization in food within our graduate program in environmental policy and sustainability management. So we launched the specialization in food this year, and we're very excited because also grad students can learn and more about food and work on food. As you know, we have a series of events. This is one we're very happy to work with Green Market again. It's become sort of a yearly appointment, and all the events have been really interesting, great. We're very happy about the collaboration. We're going to work together also on October 10th in Union Square. So there are other events. If you're interested, you can leave your email address, and we'll make sure to keep you posted. Last but not least, we also launched a website called The Inquisitive Eater, that it's open to submissions from anybody. It has a little bit of policy, but it also has art, writing, design. It's becoming something quite interesting. We have photographers sending us stuff. It's a way for the new school to have a presence also in that world. That said, I remember I took a note. Just today, we posted on the Inquisitive Eater an infographic about Is Organic Healthier? There is all this conversation after the studies that came out and whatnot, so we posted something that might be interesting within that conversation. So we try to keep it updated, and we try to get on all the important debates that happen. So I think we can just start with the program. Today I'm very happy to introduce you the moderator of this panel, Michael Horowitz. He's been the director of Green Market for 5.5 years ago. 5.5 years, so he started 5.5 years ago. He just told me prior to 2000, he didn't know much about agriculture, and then he started working in the field and got passionate, and now has become one of the, sort of columns in this field in New York City. He will talk more about Green Market, but you know that it works on all sorts of issues, regional systems, and different growing practices. And that's why we're having this meeting here. So, Michael, if you want to introduce the other speakers, thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Just a quick introduction. I'm Michael Horowitz, the director of Green Market. And Green Market is a program of Grow NYC, a nonprofit here in New York City. And Green Market works with about 240 local food producers. Our region is a strange one. It's 250 miles to the north, 120 miles to the south, and 170 miles east and west. So if we were sitting in Poughkeepsie right now, we'd be smack dab in the middle. But we're here at the New School, and I want to thank the New School for being great partners in this work. The Green Market mission is to help the producers that we work with stay in business and keep their farms viable or their food businesses viable. And they do that by us providing strong marketplaces for them and allowing them to sell directly to you and having their food dollar go directly into their pockets where it belongs. And part of Green Market's work and one of the incredible benefits of shopping at a farmer's market is I believe that we provide the most transparent marketplace for the consumer that exists. Unfortunately, John Grzinski, one of our panelists, was not able to join us tonight, and we're not going to be able to benefit from his great historical perspective and his knowledge on these issues. But you'll be able to go either this Saturday or next Saturday at the latest, because, again, he's not able to be here, and talk to him about these issues and the other farmers at any one of our 55 locations that are there, him or herself, in person to sell directly to the consumer. I love the term, the inquisitive eater. We call our education series the Educated Eater. We started about 5 years ago, and ironically, our first panel was on food labels. And I think, fortunately and unfortunately, what we talked about 5 years ago is just as relevant today. It means that there are more people out there who are interested in knowing about their food and where their food comes from and how food is produced. And it also means that we as a consumer public are as confused about what some of these terms mean, what they don't mean. You know, there's organic, there's natural, free range, free running, cage free, pasture raised, certified naturally grown, and dozens of other terms that are out there. And some will claim them for their own and manipulate what they're supposed to be about. Others will embrace them. And I don't want to talk about the Stanford study, but what I will say is that it points out how confusing these issues can be, and that there's research out there that can argue strongly in favor of one position and research from another think tank or university that argues the exact opposite. And it's hard to make sense of it all. But what we're lucky is that we have 3 great panelists tonight that will do an incredible job explaining to us what their labels mean, or Cheryl Rogowski, Andrew, I'm going to call her the lone farmer on the panel, even though you are a former poultry ex-farmer. And Cheryl's going to talk about her farm's evolution, what she embraces, her standards, and we'll move on from there. And I'm not going to talk too much. I might chime in. I might ask a few questions, and at the end we'll have opportunity for you to ask your questions. We'll have the last half hour. But what I'd like to do now, I also want to point out on the table where you came in, there are 2 glossaries, if you will. One is the glossary of market terms that we have at all of our markets, and the other is food labeling for dummies that Animal Welfare Approved puts out. Both are available on our websites. Our glossary of market terms are available at all of our market manager stands. They're back there, and again, they're online. But I want to start with Alice Varon, the Executive Director of Certified Naturally Grown. You all have her bio, so I won't read it to you. But what I will ask is if you could tell us about your label, what it means, how long you've been around, who you work with.
Well, the whole gamut.
The whole gamut.
Okay, sounds good. You'll give these guys a chance to do the same, right?
Oh, I will.
Okay, good. All right, so Certified Naturally Grown was founded 10 years ago when the National Organic Program took effect. First of all, it's really fun to be here at the new school and talking to you guys in this new context. I actually graduated from the Milano School quite a few years ago in urban policy, and I guess I realized I was a country girl, so I moved up to the country a little while after that, and that's how I got involved in this farming organization. Now I'm back in Brooklyn. But the program, Certified Naturally Grown, was founded by farmers who had been using organic methods for many, many years and wanted a way to get credit for their practices and convey them to their customers. Back in 2002, the National Organic Program took effect. And what that meant is that if you wanted to use the word organic to describe your farm or your farm products, you need to go through the new certification process, or you risked pretty expensive fines. And for a lot of the farmers in the Mid-Hudson Valley, many of whom sell here in the city at green markets, it wasn't an attractive option mostly because of the paperwork requirements and the certification fees, but yet they were very committed to organic production practices. So Certified Naturally Grown was founded in that context as a way for farmers to both highlight their practices and to promote, organic production. And so it started as a regional program. Some of the first farmers you may know, Bradley Farm, Cheryl has been in the program
2004.
Since 2004, yes, since practically from the beginning. Evolutionary Organics and a few others. So we quickly grew to become a national program because farmers around the country were in exactly the same position. And it's primarily folks who are selling locally at farmers markets through CSAs who have a direct relationship with their customers. They're not necessarily working through wholesale channels. They don't have 100 acres of carrots growing in the desert. They have small-scale diversified farms, which are really the kinds of farms that are at the heart of the organic movement. And so we quickly grew. Today there's 740 farms participating around the country. And I guess, one of the first questions you probably have is, well, how is it different from organic? So it's got different farms participating. It's primarily for direct market farmers, but the main difference is in the certification process. There's an application, there's an annual inspection requirement, but the inspection, unlike with a third-party program, like the National Organic Program or Animal Welfare Approved, is carried out by other farmers typically. It's a different model of quality guarantee systems called a participatory guarantee system. And it's a model endorsed by the International Federation of Organic Agriculture Movements, which has found PGS programs to be really beneficial to supporting small-scale farming operations. Here we have a model that includes the stakeholders, typically other farmers in the area, but it could be extension agents or customers who are involved in the annual inspection requirement. And this is one way that we feel we're not only providing a label. In fact, I think that's just a small part of what Certified Naturally Grown offers. We're also helping to strengthen the community of small-scale farmers who are striving to be as sustainable as possible. It's a very steep learning curve, and especially with all the new farmers coming onto the scene, there's a real need for a program like ours that is more accessible to small-scale producers, both in terms of cost and in terms of paperwork and in terms of how big you have to be to justify being involved in our certification program. So when farmers visit each other's farms, they learn a lot. They talk. They find out how someone else is doing things. And they realize, I always think of Cheryl because I was talking to her about, so what are things you've learned by going to a farm tour? Because it's great to have examples. And one really nice example is someone had a variety of spinach that they were growing that would grow well into the summer months when it's often very difficult to have a good crop of leafy greens. And just by discovering this new variety, they were able to grow spinach for longer, have more bountiful crop, and the huge economic benefits from that. But there's many more examples besides that. So through the inspection process, it's not just checking off a list of things, are you doing them right or wrong, but this is how I'm doing it, or this is how you could be doing it differently. And networks form that are mutually supportive, that have all kinds of spin-off benefits that you can't anticipate at the outset, but that can result in sharing equipment, placing bulk orders, just calling each other up for tips on what are you doing this year for this particular challenge. And that's what we want to see ultimately. We're not just about putting more labels on food. We're about having more farmers succeed and grow and provide good food for their communities. And I think our model is a really good way to do that. And I think I'll let other folks talk now.
Okay. Andrew, I'm going to head over to you. Andrew Gunther is the program director at Animal Welfare Approved. We have a number of farmers that have are now certified with your agency, and I'll ask you to sort of do the same. If you could tell us about the label, how long you've been around, how many farms you work with, and how you got started.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate what a privilege it is to be here. I've been in and out of New York with my English accent now for about 6 years, and I happen to love it dearly. You have a great place to be and some great food, and as you can see from my food, I adore food. The charity itself has been around since the 50s, and we're quite unique in amongst any charity working in food animal production. Our sole mission is to minimize the impact of man on animals. That's why it exists. A couple of neat things about AWI, which is the parent charity. They were the first USDA label ever to be put on a meat product. And I need to be really clear here, we really only work in the food animal sector. We don't work in the vegetables and otherwise. If you put something in my garden, I'm very good at killing it. I'm extremely adept at turning a carrot seed into dust. I come from a farming history. We used to produce a significant number of chicks. And what we do at AWA is a standard third-party certification. And we're working with just over 1,500 farmers. It depends which day of the week it is. Some are coming in, some are going out. About 1 million acres, and the numbers of animals are, compared to other programs with lower standards, they're quite small, but compared to what's going on, we've got the largest group of grass-fed producers in the US. And some of my great farmers are in the United States, in New York State. But Animal Welfare Approved is a set of published standards that are audited and visited by a set of highly trained auditors. And the reason, and this is quite interesting, because I actually like certified naturally grown because I think there's a whole trust factor that can work. But I think there comes a point where it becomes too big or too technical for somebody to go and audit or look and see whether things are happening. And I think when you get into food animal production, there are all sorts of things that can happen with an animal in terms of what body condition score is. How does the animal look compared to what it's eating? And the auditor can assess the diet and the health and welfare of the animal by doing a body condition score. We are one of only 2 programs in the United States that actually go and look at the slaughter. Other programs have a part of the slaughter process, but they allow somebody else to go and look at it for them. The other one is certified humane. And we are very proud of the accolade. We are the only seal in the United States that requires animals to be raised on pasture or range, period. We don't allow feedlots, confinement, indoor production of any description in the AWA program. We do allow farmers to take animals in if the weather's inclement, but that is the only reason you can remove them from pasture or range. So we don't have any indoor systems within our program. And it's exciting for me because I think America is an awakening market. We've been very much brand-led. So we've all believed that Tyson, Smithfield, Cargill, et al. Have done the right thing by providing very cheap food to the nation. And it's turned out not to be very cheap. It's costing us very dear. We've got climate change because of it. And I think what we're finding, which is extremely exciting, is just a great growth in customer awareness of the issues that surround food animal production, as in GHG, greenhouse gases, methane, nitrous oxide, water and pesticides. And as Michael said, we did food labeling for dummies because when we're born in the United Kingdom, are there any other Brits in the room? What happens is the midwife gets you out, she turns you over and she slaps a rule book on your chest. Because we're bureaucrats by breeding in the United Kingdom. We've got a rule for everything, including the time you can use the restroom. So I was absolutely appalled when I read a label, and the label said on a chicken, no hormones or antibiotics. And it had a little asterisk by it. And I like, what on earth does that mean? So I had a look at the asterisk down the bottom, and it says, federal regulations prohibit the use of hormones in poultry production. Are we the only nation in the planet where we can be completely misled by a claim that can't happen? The poultry industry are claiming they're not doing something that legally they cannot do. The law prohibits the use of hormones in poultry production in the United States. However, they will gladly claim on their package that the turkey was raised without added hormones. So I had labeling for dummies done, which helps people through, to Michael's point, free range, which isn't classified in the US, free roaming, which can actually be free roaming inside a barn. So the chicken is free to roam inside a confined space, but the packet will claim free roaming. The cage-free broiler, I think there's probably 2 countries in the world that raise chickens for meat in cages, and they're certainly not in the United States. However, Purdue claim with great pride that they have a cage-free meat bird. Not one of their birds is ever seen the inside of a cage. But it is designed specifically to make the consumer feel good. So one of the things we pride ourselves on is helping people through the myriad of label claims and labelings for dummies. But we're very much focused on the broad market, and one of my key statements is, I will only ever be happy when everybody in downtown Baltimore can eat meat from AWA farmers at a price they can afford on a daily basis or as they need to. I want to stop high welfare sustainable meat being elite. We have a right to eat good food. It's not a privilege, it's a right. That's my soapbox.
Okay. I have lots of follow-up questions for you coming up. Cheryl Rogalski, our lone farmer on the panel. Your farm and family's history is fascinating. Cheryl's farm is in the Black Dirt, Orange County. If none of you have been there, I strongly encourage you to go visit. It's one of the most beautiful parts of our state and of our country, and it could has the potential of feeding a whole lot of New Yorkers, including our school children and other institutions. But Cheryl, we can talk about that another time. I'm curious, what certification does your farm have? Why and how did you choose this? And why did you not choose others? Did you ever consider some of the others in your decision of determination of coming to where you are now?
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here as well and taking time out of your busy days to spend time here and giving me some time off from the farm to come down and visit. I'm only about an hour and a half away, depending on traffic. About 60 miles northwest of the GW is what my dad always said. I was born and raised on our farm. I used to say I was born in the dirt. My mother would get mad at me. She's like, "You were not." But I pretty much was. I'm second generation on my dad's side. My dad, his parents came from Poland. And as typical of most of the folks in my area, when everyone came to our region, the Black Dirt region, which is over 10,000 acres in size, everybody grew onions. And that's what I grew up on, raising onions. At our peak, we were 75 acres. And when my dad was a kid, there was no such thing as chemicals. Everything was organic. They didn't know anything else back in the 20s and 30s. As time evolved, we became typical of the region, conventional onion growers. As I said, we were 75 acres at our peak. My dad had me, so I was starting to run the granular chemical spreaders on the farm. When it came time and he was going to have me start running the spray rigs, my mom put her foot down and said, "Absolutely not. My 16-year-old daughter is not going to get on a spray rig and run those chemicals. She may someday want to have children, and I want her to have that option." My mom was a registered nurse. And of course, my dad bowed to my mother, as in most families, it does tend to work that way. And we began a progression. And I'm telling you this for a reason, because it is part of our history and a lot of the decisions that we've made along the way and still make every day. We sprayed chemicals, we were synthetic fertilizers, we did what everybody did. Crop dusters, used to race the crop dusters when you were riding down the fields, to beat the spray before it got the trucks misted or before you were on the back of the truck and you got misted. It was just what you did. As time progressed and went on, we gradually changed. We had issues on our soil and our land, and we were given options to change. Well, first we were told to quit farming, and I think you can kind of gather for us that's not an option. And then we were told to fumigate our soil with no guarantees of results, and we couldn't afford the 6+ figures that would have cost us. So the third option left was change, and we've begun we traced it back to about 1982, and we've been on a progression of change and diversification ever since. From growing predominantly onions and beets and carrots, Dad got into the green market system around that time. Stanley Oshchepinski, Sr., talked Dad into it. At the local bars, that's where all the gossip went down, all the prices were set at the markets, what was the onion price trading at. And Stosh told my dad, you got to come into the green market system. And we started diversifying into other vegetable productions. Gradually, as time went on, I was driving my father crazy because I wanted to plant and grow other things, and he finally gave me 5 acres of land to do what I wanted to do with. So I was doing it organically, with just whatever I could get my hands on. When I got done with his work, I would do my work. So I had 5 acres of, at that time, no one knew around here what a jalapeno was, or tomatillo, or white pumpkins and blue pumpkins, and no one was growing flowers in our area, that's for sure. So I was doing all these wild and crazy things, and we started incorporating them, and I was doing it without chemicals. And as time went on, we started incorporating this back into the main operation of the farm. And my dad passed away in 1999. And one of the things that he said to me is that he never wanted to see us work as hard as he did as a kid growing up. And that's why he always struggled. He never wanted to see us use chemicals, but at the same time, he also wanted to see us have an easier way of life than what he did. As the farm progressed and as time went on, we have gotten to the point where, through this passage of time, we use no chemicals whatsoever on our farm. 3 years ago, when we had that tomato blight breakout, I struggled with the decision, and finally I broke down and I applied copper on the farm. I did it for a couple of times until I couldn't get any more trying to save the crop. I had 5,000 tomato plants, and I lost every single one of them. Even putting the copper out a couple of times, I just couldn't stop the disease from spreading. Another factor in our region is that we are known as the drowned lands historically. And not just because of events like last year, which was traumatic with Hurricane Irene, but we typically flood. We're the bottom of a glacial lake. Our soil is organic matter, what we farm. Our organic matter composition in our farm ranges anywhere from 68 to 92%. Most farmers hope to achieve 3%. So basically in our region, we're farming a giant bowl of compost. Also, the unique nature of our soil means that it binds things to it and it holds things. So under the National Organic Program that was instituted, you have 3 years of living clean to be able to become certified, provided you meet all the other requirements, to become a certified organic farmer in this country. The very nature of my soil prohibits that, because the very nature of my soil holds things for 18+ years. I'm not clean after 3 years. I'm not. And no one in my region, I don't feel, can claim that, knowing the very nature, the biodynamic nature of our soil. I looked at the organic program. My brother and I, we were partnering together at the time, came very close to organic certification on the farm. I filled all the paperwork out, got it all submitted, had all the documentation done, and got a letter back in the mail from NOFA, which is the certifier we chose to use, saying that in 5 days we need all this documentation from you. And at that time, we were in the fields. We broke ground in February. So by June, May, when we got this letter from NOFA saying they needed all this extra documentation, we were in September conditions. We just looked at each other and said, it's just not possible. Had I known then what I know now, if I had made a phone call, they would have worked with us and helped us. We probably would have had, there was no reason for us not to. We would have had organic certification in place. And I've done this dance. I've toyed with it back and forth and back and forth. When I learned through Ron Kozla, I'd known Ron Kozla, who was one of the creators of the Certified Naturally Grown program. I started hearing about it, and I decided I needed some kind of label on the farm because we are different and what we represent. And I needed some way, and for my people who work for me, I can't be in every single farmer's market all the time, at every CSA distribution site, at my farm store, in the fields, in my office. I'm not that good, and I'm not that many people. So I needed something to help my folks, and I chose to go with the Certified Naturally Grown program. At that time when it began, part of the inspection process was a choice of having your consumers do your inspection. And that's how we chose to have our inspections done. So we would do an open house on the farm and give the inspection forms to our consumers, and they would actually go out and inspect the farm for us. So the veil of transparency was completely lifted. You got to ask and see all the aspects of the operation that you would never, ever have an opportunity to embrace or to exercise in exercising your rights as a consumer of food. So it's been a long process, and I still vacillate sometimes. Do I need the organic shingle? Don't I? Someone will walk up to you at a farmer's market. Are you organic? No. Boom, they're gone. Well, we're better than organic is our answer now. And they're like, well, what do you mean by that? But now we have a chance to have a conversation. When they see the banner hanging with the certified naturally grown logo on it, what does that mean? We have the standards. We copy the brochures. I don't know if it's legal or not, but that's what we did. But we copied the brochure and made it into a banner with the points on it. Well, what does that mean? Talk to us. Explain these things to us. So by being CNG, certified naturally grown, it helps us to have the conversation, or for folks to ask us the questions that they might just walk by us and not ask that question that needs to be asked.
Alice and Andrew, how do you advise folks who are certified under your programs to communicate to their consumers? Do you provide them with the materials? Do you give them talking points? Is there standardized processes?
We're probably really formal. We describe ourselves as the eyes and ears of the conscientious consumer. I'm always troubled when somebody says, hey, go and have a look at the farm, and you can tell if everything's all right. I've got guys that have been raising cattle, chickens, and sheep for 15 years and still can miss a little trick in a herd of cattle, flock of sheep. But you put it really gracefully. I think there comes a point when you need somebody else to say that your farm is what it is, that the trust circle has expanded beyond where you can work, and that's where you were looking at the logo. I'm going to trash organic because I actually don't think it's any good for food animal production. It prohibits the use of antibiotics, period. So if an animal becomes sick on an organic farm, the farmer is financially incentivized not to treat it. Because if the farmer treats it, the animal has to be removed from the program. I don't believe personally that's a good thing. I think you should be able to use therapeutic antibiotics on anybody or anything that is sick. US organic standards don't have stocking densities. So you have all sorts of dairy farmers cramming cattle in very cramped conditions, claiming organic and shoving on a retailer's shelf. And then you've got great organic farmers, unprivileged to be sat next to you, doing the right thing, using the same seal. And what's really significant for us is about 62% of my farms have the organic seal, but they choose to be AWA in order to prove they've got welfare on the farm. That animal production piece is missing from organic standards. And what's even more troubling is it doesn't look as though welfare's on the organic agenda next time round, which is very, very sad indeed. But getting off my soapbox, we provide farmers with posters, we write labeling for dummies, grass-fed primer, which we're really proud of, which talks why pasture beef is better than conventional beef. We have really proud of a deal we did with an egg farmer in upstate New York where we were able to work, get him some marketing money, and he brings 80 dozen eggs down from Alfred, New York, on a bi-weekly basis to sell in Manhattan. I haven't got them tonight, but we're really proud of our egg boxes. Our farmers complained bitterly that egg boxes were 48 cents a dozen box. And every state regulator prohibits you reusing the boxes. And of course, every farmer complies with that regulation. We all know you mustn't take your egg boxes back. Did it for years. So what we did is we went ahead and bought 20,000 egg boxes, had them branded. They're branded with the AWA logo on, but there's also a big hole in the middle for the farmer to take possession. We charge 13 cents a box, and I've got a donor who covers shipping. So we try to innovate to promote our farmers, get them into the marketplace, get them to grow, get them to cooperate. But I think we just do anything, and we're really, really careful. And I know, you guys are careful who can use your seal. We protect it religiously, almost brutally.
It's true, they're very proud of their egg boxes. Every time I see something from you guys, the egg boxes are here. It's like really big news.
We sold 22,000 egg boxes last week.
See? He's talking about it again.
It's a big deal. It's like, I do the budget for it and have a heart attack. It's like another 6,000 on egg boxes. My boss is going, what are you spending the money on? Egg boxes.
Right. So we, to answer the question, we offer stickers that our farmers can buy at cost to put on their products. We do have talking points that are just sort of incorporated in our website. I've seen a lot of the language that I wrote pop up on our certified members' websites, and that's great. You know, we're also very careful about how we describe what we do and who our farms are, because we don't want to lead them astray into using the O word and risk getting fined. So we're really careful about that, because there is a lot of confusion, and there are farmers who will say we're non-certified organic, and you know, you could get nailed for that. So we try to, you know, observe best practices. And we do have a market poster that Cheryl referred to, that farmers can buy a little laminated sign. They can download it and make their own. That's fine. We just want to make materials available to our certified members. I think that's it. And we have little informational cards too that has an explanation on one side, what is certified naturally grown, how is it different from organic, and on the other side, one version says who's your farmer and what does it mean that they're certified naturally grown. Another one, we have a card for our beekeepers. We have an apiary certification program, and that explains what it means to be a certified naturally grown beekeeper.
And your bumper stickers.
And we have our bumper stickers, yeah. Yeah, there's various things. Yeah.
And a good social media presence.
What's that?
Good social media presence.
Yeah, we're working on that.
No, you tweet
need
every
some-
day.
Oh, yes,
We
yes.
see you
right.
promoting it every
Yes,
day.
we're still working on it, though. We can do more. We need some clever new school students.
So Cheryl, you talked about when late blight arrived in early June, you were tormented and chose to spray copper. Why copper?
Because following the Certified Naturally Grown program, I do follow the National Organic Program rules of this country. So if an organic farmer is allowed to use or not use something, I also am allowed or not allowed to use something. I do not purchase GMO seeds. I do not use synthetic fertilizers. Our farm, again, is a little bit different, but even copper is a mineral, and it's allowed, you can use it, but copper, given enough time and usage, can build up in the soils. And again, I have the further concerns, my soil is different. Because it is muck or black dirt or peat, whatever you want to refer to it as, it responds differently, reacts differently. And, you know, I don't have children personally, but I know damn well I'm leaving that farm to somebody somewhere down the road. And somebody 70, 100 years from now is going to be fed from that farm. Mm-hmm. And I want to make sure that they were taken care of. I want to make sure that everybody's taken care of that I come in contact with, or that I have the potential to impact or influence down the road. And we have an intensive seed saving program on our farm. Up until Irene last year, over 30% of our seed came in-house. So we did not have to worry about cross-contamination from other products, from wind or what have you, other issues that may happen around us. You know, under the National Organic Program, I'm required to have a buffer zone between myself and a conventional farm being certified organic if I were to go down that path. I'm lucky because I'm in a secluded valley, so the wind comes from the west, and it's the swamp that I own on the western side of the farm. So I am really protected, but there is that occasional cross breeze from the other farmer on the other side of me where something could happen. So I have to be very mindful of that and what I do and what I don't do on the farm. You know, working with places like NRCS, National Resource Conservation Services, I've been able to secure money from them to put a buffer zone in, so I can put a buffer between myself and the neighboring farm. And I'm hoping to do it on a permaculture basis, so, you know, where I can actually have something that maybe the wildlife can use. And as an interesting sidebar, I just love telling this story because I think it's so exciting. We do work very much with Cornell Park with Extension, and we do a lot of seed trails on the farm, and everybody panics right away and no, it's not GMO. We do not allow that, we do not work with that, and they know that. They bring a lot of traps out to our farm as well, and a trap is usually with hormones, and they're looking to see what kind of insects are out there. This year they did a leek moth trap on our farm, and it's in the middle of the leek field. So I was talking to Gigi, the extension agent, a couple weeks ago. I said, so how are we doing? And she's laughing and she's shaking her head. I said, what's the matter? She said, you don't have a single leek moth in that trap. I said, and? She said, the guys who are spraying every 3 to 5 days are filled with them.
That's great.
So, yeah, so having that natural balance that the farm, and it's taken us over 20 years to bring this balance in play, and we're nowhere near done. Nowhere near done. So we're very conscientious about what we do and do not do.
Just following up on the first part. So both certified organic and certified naturally grown do not mean no spray.
Correct.
right? Both allow certain chemicals to be used for pest management.
Correct.
Same thing for fertilizer?
Same thing for fertilizer. My own extension agent said a couple of years ago, it's only a matter of time before organic and conventional are using the exact same, and they already are in many instances using similar products. I forget what the one product is called. I actually purchased it 6 years ago for the Colorado potato beetles. It cost $400 for 4 ounces, and it's still sitting on the shelf because I didn't open the packet. Instead of going out and spraying this on the Colorado potato beetles on the plants, we actually go out and harvest everything by hand. We pick the larvae, we pick the eggs, we pick the masses, we lift all the leaves, and we physically do it by hand. But this same chemical that I, as a certified naturally grown farmer, I cannot use the O word, as a certified naturally grown farmer, or if I were certified organic, this same chemical a conventional farmer can use. The difference, in my understanding, is that as an organic farmer, the amendments that we are allowed to use are those that naturally occur in the environment. BT is one classic example, biothuringiensis. I probably say that word wrong. But it's a naturally occurring insecticide. This is one of the things that they are incorporating into some of our GMO food that they are producing out there now, producing natural resistances to insects by incorporating these amendments within the living structure of the plant itself and increasing the intolerances so that the insect that you're trying to combat now is developing faster over time the abilities to fight off what this other entity can do to it, and is becoming stronger faster than we can compete against it.
Andrew, you talked about that you are one of the few that goes and looks at the slaughterhouses.
Yeah, I think, can I just come in on this whole permitted substances, and I think as consumers it's something you guys really need to take note of. The industry's inch by inch getting stuff permitted in organic standards that you guys would hate. And I think it's really important because copper has a use, and if you use it once to deal with a specific issue, it's not a challenge. You can use copper sulfate to rebalance an animal's stomach to deal with salmonellas or campylobacters on a one-off basis. We have acid resistance E. coli 157, which is the one that will kill you, on the basis that we put cattle on feedlots, fill them a rampant hot diet that makes their guts acidic, which means the E. coli over time gets a resistance, which is the same resistance that comes and knocks you sideways. If you give the cow hay, because it's a ruminant, by the way, it doesn't get an acid gut, therefore you don't get E. coli 157. Relatively simple. Nature's a really cool thing. And we mess with it at our pain. We struggled, you see, because we started doing slaughter plants. It was really tough to get in them because they thought we were animal rights activists with film cameras, because we have welfare in our logo. So we had a lot of plants that were really cynical. So we developed a team of 5 folks who, although they report to my lead auditor, they operate very independently. And we visit the plant basically twice every year, one announced, one unannounced. And we're really proud of the fact that we sent our auditors to Bristol in the United Kingdom to get trained, because we actually think the American Meat Institute slaughter standards aren't strong enough. There are things that happen in the slaughter plant, and I apologize if I'm going to ruin anybody's supper. But there are sort of three parts of a slaughter plant that can make an animal really uncomfortable. One is when they arrive and they're unloaded and they're put in a layerage or a holding pen. Chances are they've been on the road for a couple of hours. They're probably slightly dehydrated. They're probably tired. It's strange. They're scared. So we were finding a lot of pens that apparently the USDA approved with sharp edges, broken bits, and nobody was really looking. So we had to sort of stand back, and we've now got a whole grant program where we're giving plants grants to improve. And then you've got the move forward to the stun, which is effectively where a pressure or an electrical current is applied to the temporal or femoral lobe at a speed or a current that causes an inability to sense pain or discomfort. It's a stun. There are methods by which the animal is killed outright, but generally they look to stun. And then there's the sanguination or the bleed out. And as I said, I was born and the midwife put the rule book on my chest, and I'm a guy that's got a qualification to slaughter chickens and cattle. And I was mortified when I stood there for a minute and a half after this cow was stunned before it was sanguinated, because it doesn't die until it bleeds. So at AWA, we've really worked hard to become the auditor. We've got to look, we've got to pass or fail the plant. That's our job. We can't fudge that issue. But we also go in and try and help. If a plant fails, we help fix it. We'll find money to buy a better stun gun, or we'll find money to fix the race that's incorrect, because we think that's just as important to the whole process as what happens on the farm. And the neat thing is, if you treat an animal right in life, you treat an animal right as it goes forward to die, it will produce the best quality meat. If you treat an animal wrong on the farm, you treat an animal wrong at the slaughter plant, it will taste like shoe leather. Respect equals a good product. You guys know this with all the work you do. It's just a known fact. The challenge for us is it just hasn't been looked at. So we're working with 123 plants across the US. My smallest plant kills 2 animals a week. My largest plant kills 600 cattle a day. So we work right across the spectrum.
And I just want to stay on this issue for a little bit. We often hear in New York that the shortage of slaughterhouse space or actual infrastructure itself is one of the greatest barriers to livestock production, and certainly impacts price of local livestock for the consumers in the room. I imagine we've also hear that many of the slaughterhouses are corrupt criminals, thieves, and again, are significant barriers to getting livestock produced locally. Is this a barrier for many farmers to enter your program, particularly here in the Northeast region?
I'm going to avoid that like the plague in every which way I can, but here's what I am going to say. I've got in excess of 120 farms waiting to come into the program to have their slaughter plants approved.
Would you speak into the microphone?
I do apologize. We've got 120 farms waiting to come into the program, waiting for plants to be approved. The meat industry used to be interesting. If you couldn't do anything else, you became a butcher. I think there's a whole new way of looking at that, where meat is no longer a dirty business. It's no longer wrong to be a purveyor of meat. I'm really lucky. I work on both sides of the fence, and I'll tell you from a meeting 3 weeks ago where I had over 100 slaughter plant owners and operators, if farmers would only turn up when they say they're going to turn up and bring what they say they're going to bring and collect what they say they're going to collect, it would make a lot of their life a lot easier. But these are good guys. These are plant operators trying to do the right thing. In New York State, you've got 2 plants that are brand new. I think Hudson Valley, they're just working on this mobile plant, which is really exciting, and we're proud to be involved in that. I think it's an impediment to trade, but I think farming is a business, and I think all sides have to get together. Because I listen to farmers dissing plant operators and plant operators dissing farmers, and they need to have a really good conversation because they're both blaming each other for the same things. You can never kill my cow when I need it. Well, he's trying to run a business where he's got to fit 50 farmers in. So I think if that can work, we need more infrastructure, definitely. But I don't think it's as big an impediment. We're a market-driven society. If there's a demand, somebody will build something. And there's a plant opening upstate somewhere too. They've just built another new one. So I think it's happening. But I don't think it's as clear-cut as it's the plant owner's fault and they're all corrupt.
Okay.
There's a joint culpability.
So what do you think are some of the greatest hurdles for farmers to be certified?
For us?
Yeah.
Sourcing of animals. We require to know, and it's our number one reason we fail farms. We need to know where mum and dad is. We won't let you go and buy a cow and have it on your farm for a year and call it something else. We need to know where mum and dad is. We need to see every farm in that animal's life. we're not particularly unique in that, but if I'm saying what is the biggest challenge is finding a good breeder farm for piglets. New York could do with a really good, so if any of you got some money to invest, a bit of free-range land, there's a great business opportunity, keep some sows outdoors, and honestly, pigs are delightful. They are the cleanest animals you'll ever work with. They have, yes ma'am, they have the most enigmatic personality. There is a picture circulating on the internet of me trying to inject a boar who had pneumonia on the 7th day of antibiotics. I have a pair of British Wellington rubber boots on, and I'm doing 100 miles an hour up the field because he did not want to be injected and was about to inject my behind. They are full of personality, and I adore them, but I digress. Simply, our biggest issue is tracking the animal from the day its mum and dad are around to when it was born to when it comes onto the plate. And if you haven't gathered, I really am quite proud of what we do around farm animals. We're quite open and transparent about it. But that's the biggest challenge to entry.
And Cheryl, you talked about some of the decisions that led you not to go with certified, that you weren't sure that you would actually be approved. But what were some of the or were there harder steps for you to become certified naturally grown? Or what do you know some of your peers out there, some of the challenges they face to be able to be accepted by these certifications?
To become certified naturally grown?
Yeah.
I think for me, a lot of the groundwork was laid out because we had attempted the certified organic process. We had a lot of paperwork in place. And the paperwork requirement isn't as onerous with certified naturally grown. I mean, there's an accountability factor. I don't mean to dismiss that or make light of it. And we definitely have to account for everything that we have out there and what we do. I don't know, it just made sense. It really fit us and who we are. And other farmers that I've talked to, they've gone on and decided to go down the certified naturally grown path as well because they felt it made sense for them. Likewise, it just fits. It works. You don't have to think about it. And that's the way it should be. You shouldn't have to struggle with what your food's about.
Alice, I'll ask you as a certifier, what do you see are some of the biggest barriers or hurdles that farmers jump through so that they can have your certification?
By far, the biggest challenge for our members in maintaining their certification is getting the inspection requirement fulfilled. That's an annual requirement. There's also a work requirement, which is to say that as a member of Certified Naturally Grown, you agree to conduct an inspection of another farm, if there is one in your area, within an hour's drive. So we haven't removed anyone from the program for not conducting an inspection, not yet anyway, but we've removed, unfortunately, quite a few farms for not having their own inspection fulfilled. Farmers are busy. It's really hard to, get on the phone and pull out your calendar and try to find a date that works for both you and another busy farmer. So that is by far probably the biggest challenge. For livestock producers, the biggest challenge to being accepted is the feed requirement, because we do require that the livestock are fed organically produced feed. It doesn't have to be certified organic. And in some parts of the country, that's just not available at an affordable price. But I think the inspection is a more significant factor. But it's important. We can't run a certification program with integrity unless the inspection's carried out. So we're sticking to our guns.
Okay. Yeah. And Andrew, you only allow grass-fed, grass-finished, no grain, no other feed?
We're pretty clear on it. We require a percentage of the animal's diet. The science is that if you use a grain above 15%, you start to impact the balance of the rumen in cattle. So all of ours are expressed in percentages, and dry matter intake and forage. So we wouldn't have a grain-fed cow in the program. Do some of our cattle eat grain? Then absolutely, if the farmer's growing oats or otherwise. So it's the key to us is it's outdoors on pasture and range.
But sorry, just to be clear, the farmer has to be growing their own.
Nope.
No,
they can buy feed.
And does that have to be organic or?
No, we require the farmer to make their best effort to ensure that it's not GM contaminated. And until we get a testing program, we are barking up if we can get some labels the organic people aren't testing. We know that 70% of the maize in the US is definitely GM contaminated. That's a fact. You know, it is what it is. We need a testing regime. We require farmers to buy it wherever it's available, but they've got to prove it. You know, they've got to come up with some paperwork. They can't just say, hey, this was whatever. And we do have some of these Monsanto renegades who may be seed saving, but they may not be seed saving. They may just drop a few seeds at the side of their farm.
What's the forage requirement for ruminants?
Minimum of 85%.
Great.
Mhm.
I asked, what was the forage requirement for ruminants? Like cows, goats, sheep? How much of their diet needs to come from pasture? 85% is good.
And that's a minimum. We got some at 100%. But we also have farmers in upstate Michigan in the middle of the winter.
It's tricky.
It's pretty difficult. The reason that you ask for a ruminant to have a diet of forage is because that's what their stomach's designed to eat. It's not designed to eat grain. A cow doesn't naturally run around with a combine harvester and get a couple of bushels of wheat and suck it up. It grazes. Man decided that was a really stupid idea and was going to pump it full of grain to make it get more fat, which is where you get this USDA prime and choice. And the lipid fat that's in the intramuscle of beef is actually not very good for you because it's full of the wrong fatty acids. Whereas a pasture-grown beast or a grass-fed beast has lower levels of those acids and higher levels of the positives.
How does your 85% differ than free range and pasture raised?
Pasture raised has no definition. Free range has no definition. And we are, I think, some 20% higher than the organic standard, but I'd have to double check.
There's no USDA definition for pasture raised?
No, sir.
I think the organic program requires that it's 25 or 30% of a ruminant's diet comes from pasture. It's pretty easy threshold to meet.
So these certifications sound like they're the end all. They're the greatest thing since sliced bread. So why wouldn't every farmer choose to go this route?
They haven't heard about us yet.
Yeah, exactly.
So you go ahead and tell your farmer.
That's one of the most common questions we get at a farmer's market. What is certified naturally grown? What does that mean? What is it?
I mean it. Why are not all of our producers that are bringing livestock to the market animal welfare approved?
Your hog producers, because they can't find enough weaners. Simply that. We're a free certification. We're full of good advice. I'm great to work with. We promote the heck out of the farms. It's a no-brainer. I think if you're a farmer in business today, you have to recognize you're no longer the only stakeholder.
I think part of it is that a lot of farmers haven't heard about us yet. I know in our case that's true. And I think also there's a lot of farmers who have heard about us and they know it's a good idea and they want to do it and they intend to do it. And I've seen them several times and they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to do that this year. And then life takes over. They've got to order seeds. They've got to put the crops in the ground. And before you know it, it's June and there's absolutely no way they're applying for certification until maybe November. So life, but I think there may be other reasons. Those are the big ones.
Just go ahead and ask them.
I think that someone
Not
will
yet.
bring a mic to you when it's time for you to ask questions,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
But I'm being serious. Ask your farmer. If you're buying meat, where did it come from? How was it raised? If you keep asking that question, people will take notice, and farmers will inherently do the right thing. They're business people.
My next question was going to be about your inspection regimen and how often the producers in your program are inspected, and how
I
can we
deal with
trust
that,
the
but
label?
you just very eloquently made the case for third-party auditing. Because if you'd have had me in there when that was going on, or any one of my auditors, we'd have failed it. America is too fond of auditing and certifying itself. We're too fond of believing ourselves. This garbage in California, where they're ramming electric pods into the hind quarter of a destroyed dairy cow that the farmer should never have taken there was an aberration. And had there have been third-party oversight by credible groups, that would not have happened. I'm not saying it doesn't happen in Europe, because it does. There are liars and cheats everywhere. But while we're turning a blind eye to this ridiculous mess, we're not fixing it. And that, I think, is the eloquent argument for third-party inspection. Because the Jewish family turned... Pardon me?
In this country, there are very few agricultural inspectors. As a result of all the Republican administrations we had, they've been reducing regulations, and the result is that where 20 years ago, I think the number of agricultural inspectors has been reduced by something like 3/4.
I want to go back to my question.
Just to come back on it, look, you can do something about that. You can say, where's this seal, Mr. Retailer? Where's this seal, Mr. Retailer?
And also,
I'm not
where
gonna
are the
buy your
standards
dog.
that define what the seal means? We've been quite frustrated by Purina making natural feed for animals. Well, what does that mean, natural? They just want us to feel good when we're buying that feed for our chickens. Or, you know, it doesn't mean anything except perhaps there's no medication in that feed. But who knows how it was grown? No doubt there's GMO grains in there. So I think if you...
Sir,
if
I'm going
hold-
to allow our
Yeah.
panelists to answer the question. Thank you.
If, you know, when you see a label on a product, I think it's important to know who put it there, and is there someone besides the company making that claim, and can you look it up to find out what it means? I mean, it's not hard to find out what it means that a farm is animal welfare approved. They've got a website, and there's a degree of transparency there, and same on ours. So I think...
So I want to go,
Yeah.
I'd like to go back to my question. How often do you inspect your farms?
Our farms are inspected annually. There's a 4-month grace period, so at least every 16 months. But it's an annual requirement that must be fulfilled to retain the certification.
And are you training the farmers that are going and to do the inspections?
We have a list of who's qualified to do the inspections, and again, it's not a third-party audit where you've got someone going through a checklist and checking on very technical things. It's more about building network and support supportive communities, and having the inspection carried out by another farmer or an extension agent or a group of 3 or more customers. So it's a somewhat different approach. And who has conducted the inspection is available for customers to see. I think that's one of the unique hallmarks of our program, is the degree of transparency that is inherent in our program. Each of our members has a profile on our website. You can read the information they gave us when they completed their application. You can see who has conducted their inspections since the beginning of their certification. So if Cheryl inspects Ray's farm, then she signs a document saying that she agrees that these things are true about this farm, and that goes on our website. So her name is on the line as a farmer who believes in her own practices and believes in the values of the program. So she doesn't want to put her name on an inspection report of a farm that doesn't really belong there.
I'm shocked to hear that Ray allows another farmer onto his farm.
It's rare.
Yes. I made a joke about one of her farmers, and that I was shocked that he allowed another farmer onto his farm. He's very territorial, but wonderful. Andrew, how about your inspection?
Once every 12 months, one unannounced inspection. On top of that, every 5 years. If we get a complaint, we're there within 72 hours. And I mean, this is where we really disagree. You can't have a friend or an ally auditing somebody else's farm. We don't allow our auditors to do business with anybody in the program. We're really clear. You can't have any relationship beyond knowing what you're doing. But I think if you're not working in food animal, there may be other ways. I don't know cropping, but what I do know is we gave up a checklist approach 3 years ago when we started to look at outcome auditing on top of our inputs. So You have what should make an animal have high welfare is pasture access, the right genetics, the right type of husbandry, the right type of food. That has the potential to produce high welfare production. However, if you turn it on the other side, is the cattle's body condition, are there feet, are there udders, are there eyes? Do you walk into a herd of cattle and you genuinely just throw your hands in the air, and it's called fright and flight, all the cattle run away? And if they haven't been beaten to death by a farmer with a stick, they'll all come back because cattle are inherently curious. So for us, there's an awful lot more than just to turn up and look at the ethos of the farm and how it's functioning. We're looking for things like organophosphates being used as controls for parasites. We're looking for evidence of antibiotic usage. So we're actually looking around the barn for needles and all those sort of things. We just don't take anything on trust. I love my farmers dearly, and I would walk with them to the end of the earth. But my job is to put my reputation on the line to say they are doing what they say they are doing. And my auditors go to one compulsory 2-day training annually, and then every 2 years we send them across to the UK, to Bristol, for a 3-day course looking at outcome auditing to add that on top of it. Our auditors are required to have a minimum of a degree in agriculture and 2 years livestock experience, or 5 years experience in the species they're auditing. So we're really, really focused on the competency and qualification of our auditors. And then we have a third party that audits us. We have somebody that goes out and checks audits our auditors. So I pay somebody to go in and audit the farm somebody's just audited to make sure my auditor's doing the right job. So we're taking the opposite approach. We're belt and braces. We absolutely look under every log and rock.
I'm not sure it's quite the opposite approach. I think it's a commendable approach, and I think it's one that is much more feasible if you have the backing of an established foundation to fund the training and do all of the inspections, which are very expensive and great and valuable for the farmers who participate. I may have given the impression that when our inspectors go and visit another farm, it's just checking out the ethos, but that's not really all that it consists of. There is an inspection worksheet with a checklist, a pretty detailed checklist of all the things to look at when one visits the farm. You do have to go through the barn, you have to go through the greenhouse and check records, and there's a pretty detailed approach to that. We don't have 5-year trainings or anything like that. It might be something we could do when we have the 3,000 farms that should be in the program that aren't yet there. But certified naturally grown is almost entirely funded by the farmers who participate. We want to keep it affordable and accessible to small-scale farmers, so we only just this year set a minimum certification dues, and those dues are $110 per year. So you can imagine what kind of budget we have to do what we do, and I think we actually offer a very meaningful and robust certification program that uses a different model than a traditional third-party program, and contributes to the growth of sustainable agriculture by being inclusive of a lot of small-scale farmers who wouldn't participate if they had to pay a third-party auditor.
Cheryl, someone who...
Can I just be quite clear? We don't charge for our audits. We don't charge for our training. We're purely funded by donation. Even though our farmers want to give us donations or fundraisers, we don't take any money from anybody that's certified by us either. It's a great model. We are currently just in the process of ISO 65, which is the whole getting yourself there, and hopefully we'll be offering affordable organic audits for livestock farmers by the end of this year. So we'll be doing those at cost, which will make access to the organic market cheaper than it currently is. So we have a donation button on our website.
Sure, you talked about allowing your customers to come and see your farm, and that is the true transparency. You do have inspections from certified naturally grown. You have green market inspectors come to your farm. How do you feel as a farmer having people come onto your land and really making determinations that could impact your future and your farm's viability?
It's a risk we take. And what that comes down to is communication. You know, how well are we communicating what we are and are not doing? And how well is the recipient, the consumer, receiving the information and interpreting that information? So it's very, very important that we have an open dialogue and that my staff is properly trained as well. And a lot of people who work for me at a farmer's market, like today, my beekeeper was at the farmer's market. You know, on Saturday or Sunday, you'll see Megan, who actually worked in the kitchen with my chef. At Warwick, back home at the farmer's market, you'll see Josh, who's working in the greenhouse planting. So you're actually not just hearing from me as the farmer, you're hearing from the other folks who are a critical component of the farm. And when folks come and visit the farm, you know, my farmers are very shy. They really don't want to talk to a lot of strangers, but they'll share and they'll show and explain. Like we have a group come out and they were teaching them and showing them how to harvest peas. Don't just yank the plant out. You know, you do it this way, gently, hold the plant, pull this way, you know. But that sharing of information is so, so critical. So keeping those open line clears of communication are vital, absolutely vital. Because something can be twisted, anything can be taken out of context. A picture can be used the wrong way if someone is not educated as to what is happening or not happening. The internet can be our biggest friend or our biggest enemy.
Do you have any parting statements, either of you, before we turn it over to our audience to ask questions?
I would like to encourage folks who do shop at Green Market, I'm sure there are a few of you in here, to ask your farmers if they are certified naturally grown, because many of them probably would be very happy to learn there is such a program that would give them credit for their good production practices without having to go through the more, let's say, onerous certification process of the National Organic Program. Also, if there's any beekeepers here, we're publishing a second edition of our handbook for natural beekeeping, and I would encourage you to check it out on our website. This is our logo. I feel like I should get one of those pins you wear so that people can know what to look for when you're at the market, but here's a...
This is just in case I get lost.
Oh, yeah. There. All right, good. So, thanks.
Cheryl?
Ask the questions. Ask. We'll answer them.
Yeah.
Mine is the future of farming in America is in your hands. It's not in mine. I love the job I do. I get up at 5 o'clock, I go to bed at 8 o'clock, and all I do is try and change the way America farms. You can do twice as much as I can do by saying, if you're a vegetable produce grower, either go organic or get certified naturally grown. If you're a food animal producer and you reckon you're doing it right, let one of AWA's auditors come and have a look. Because there are many, many people saying we raise animals humanely, and I would absolutely disagree. And I will just close. The future of America's agriculture is in your hands. It's not in mine. Change farming with your dollar.
So I'll ask a very quick question. How many of you do shop at the farmers markets? And I guess with a show of hands, because I can't interpret head nods or what have you, how many of you actively are talking to the farmers or to the people behind the stands, asking them about their growing practices, and that you feel comfortable with the information that they're giving back to you? Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for shopping at the farmers markets. There should be and are managers at every market, and if there's a conversation that you want to have, they are there for those conversations. They can guide you to producers, they can talk to you about the farms, they can talk to you about the growing practices, and I encourage you to engage with your farmer and engage with your market manager. There were a number of hands that just went up, so I'll stop talking and turn it over to the audience. And
How do you know who the market manager is?
there's a market manager stand that is, there's signage, the tent itself is branded with our logos, and it says manager stand
And that's what each farmer?
at each market.
Please don't
But
speak
we're
without
gonna-
the
yeah,
mic.
if you have a question,
Yes, I just want
Okay.
to know exactly the terminology for certified humane. There's eggs that are sold, and on them it says certified humane.
Mm-hmm. That's HVAC, Humane Farm Animal Council. HVAC, Humane Farm Animal Council. It's run by a delightful lady called Adele Douglas out of Arlington, Virginia. Adele does allow birds to be indoors. She does allow beaks to be tipped if the chances are the bird will peck another one, but she doesn't allow cages or crates. Certified humane.
Yes.
Ma'am, actually, if it helps, she's described in here under certified humane. If you haven't got a copy, I'll get you a copy.
Can I ask Mr. Gunther, what does the label look like, animal welfare approved? I have never seen it. I buy, organic eggs and, organic food, and I've never seen the label.
Where do you shop now?
I go to Westerly, I go to Fairway in the organic part, and I've just never seen the label.
That would imply that you haven't got any of our farmers you buy from.
That would imply...
You don't have any of our farmers you buy from. We have a directory online. If you let me know, are those farmers markets or are they?
No, it's not. Those are not farmers
They're
markets.
retail stores?
Yes, yes.
We don't have a presence in retail stores in New York City.
Are you
yet.
only at the farmers markets?
No, ma'am. We're in Whole Foods Market. We have farmers. We have farmers in Dixon's Farm Stand.
Right.
I'm going from memory.
But certified humane is not what you
No,
are.
this is our logo there, ma'am.
The screen. And what does it say on it?
Animal welfare
Approved.
approved.
Yeah, I've
That way.
never seen it. I don't know if I'm alone.
No, we haven't got a massive retail presence, but that's about to change in the next 3 months.
Thank you.
Carol Morrison, who is the lady off Food Inc., remember the chicken farmer with the white mask? We've just certified her farm. We helped to convert from conventional broilers to AWA hens, and she's now sold out of her eggs, and she's working with 2 other farmers to increase the supply chain.
So I cured myself with food, so I'm a little hyper aware about what I put into my body. And one of the things I learned along the way was when a food product or a food label says natural flavors, that's something I should avoid because it's a way that they can hide certain ingredients. So when I first heard the term certified naturally grown, that frightened me more than it endeared me. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just curious, what's your plan of educating people? Because I know I'm probably not alone. I'm from LA in Santa Monica, and we do ask our farmers quite often. So many people don't have labels because we all know them, and right. We know they use seaweed as their fertilizer, and ladybugs as their pesticides, and but certified naturally grown is something new to me, and it's something that I'll blog about, and say, hey, there's this new term. But how do you get that word out and not frighten people?
We definitely don't want to scare people with our name. That's the opposite. But it is a challenge. Like this is the question for this year for us, because unfortunately the word natural has been hijacked by unscrupulous companies who want to sell you stuff that they can't call organic, and that they want you to feel good about buying. And a lot of folks in the big organic community are angry about this, and rightfully so, because it's a way to bypass the more expensive production practices that organic requires, and it allows them to smuggle in GE crops that might not be so good for you. So we do have a challenge. I mean, the word natural does mean something in the English language, and I'd like to believe that it still retains that meaning and that we can keep using the word. And our job is to raise awareness about who we are and what we stand for. And, I thank you for your support through the blogging about us, and we just need to invite more people to do that, and to be at farmers markets I think would be helpful for us, not just to have our farmers there, but we could be there to talk to people about who we are and introduce ourselves to food eaters. We're pretty well known among farmers. and well-liked. They immediately understand, oh, I see why that program exists, that makes sense. But it's a little trickier with people who haven't thought about what it entails to be certified organic or other certification programs. And it's just it's a big country of a lot of food eaters, so I guess we need some marketing expertise to help us on this one. But you know, we're just doing our best to get the word out there.
You are welcome to come to market anytime.
Thank
Andrew's crew has been at Union Square at times, and I don't know about any other markets, but educating the consumer is exactly what we want you to do.
Yeah, on October 10, we'll have a table at New Green City 2012 in Union Square, so come by and say hi, give us some love, and just keep talking about us. Yeah, thanks.
I had two quick questions. The first is that I think it absolutely is important for consumers to spread the word, ask the question, but I was wondering specifically, Michael, what, Grow NYC is doing through the Green Market program to, get some of the, your local farmers involved and aware of some of these certifications. So, because that seems like a really natural sort of bridge there. My second question was with regard to both certifications. What happens if there's an issue spotted during an audit? So if you could just talk about what is the time frame in terms of how long do they have to remedy it? Are there fines involved? Anything you could share would be helpful. Thank you.
That's a big one.
So we do not promote one certification over another. We let the farmers and the market decide what the growing practices should be to a certain degree. I mean, there are obviously certain practices that if we discovered, we would find to be so reprehensible that we wouldn't have that producer in the marketplace. And we limit who can come into the market based on this, relatively speaking, the size of their farm and the type of grower that they are. But we have growers that are, they would argue not to call us conventional because they're raising dozens of varieties of products, and they're not monocropping. But we have farmers who certainly do use pesticides and synthetic fertilizers, and we have farmers in the program that use absolutely no spraying whatsoever and everything in between. And if you were at Union Square today, you would see the gamut of that spectrum. And you would see the spectrum of price, growing practices, and even quality. And again, we allow the marketplace for the most part to determine what farmers are going to utilize. And a number of even Cheryl's neighbors who traditionally have sprayed, some of the larger farms in the programs and have sprayed, this year have begun exploring with green manures and using integrated pest management. One, because the marketplace is telling them that's what consumers want. The other is it's becoming prohibitively expensive to use some of the synthetics. And these are smart farmers, and they get these issues. We host panels like this. We invite, invite the labels to come to market where they can interact with farmers. I don't know if we've ever had any. Andrew, we once did something with you where we brought some farmers to a restaurant.
Whole aisle full of AWA farmers and products. So I think out of all the farmers markets, you guys are probably doing the most, other than saying you're going to be this, this, or this. The problem is when markets say that, they go to AHA, which is the certification that allows cages. So they go to lower common denominator. So I'm preferring this approach, which is...
We try to do matchmaking and provide information where possible. I will answer the question also that you asked them, because we also have our own inspections department, because we are a producer-only market, and we insist that what you bring to market is what you're growing on your farm. So to come into the program, we make sure that, one, you have to have your local ag extension agent write a letter of recommendation that you are in fact in production, that they've been to your farm, and that they know your farm. You have to submit a crop plan, or your licenses, or what slaughterhouse facility you're using. We then do inventories at market to make sure that the product that's coming to market matches what we're seeing on a crop plan. And then we also do on-farm inspections. We have our own inspections team where we need to contract out with other experts. Sometimes we will have a livestock expert go out to a farm, and we have everything that can be grown, cut, baked in the program. And it's hard to have an inspector that's an expert on fish, poultry, orchard, and vegetable production, and baked goods. Because we even have great local grain requirements for our baked goods. We have an active farmer and consumer advisory committee that creates the rules that our participants agree to abide by. And when we catch people violating the producer-only rules, there are consequences. And they range from a warning the first time you get caught, unless it's from outside of the region. If it's from outside the region, it's an automatic suspension for a week. And if you are repeatedly bringing in product that is not your own, we ask you to leave. It's the integrity of the marketplace. So there are farmers, one of the reasons I asked Cheryl that question, there are farmers who are very scared when we go onto their farm, because they understand that the consequences are severe. But most welcome our inspectors onto their farm to demonstrate what they're doing, and because they believe in the integrity of that marketplace and the importance of having that strict inspections department.
Is that true for all green markets?
It's true for all green markets that we operate. So we operate 55 green markets, and green market is a trademarked name, but there are over 65 other farmers markets in the city, and I cannot tell you that they have the same rigorous inspections that we do. But I'll turn it over to you guys to answer what happens.
Oh, that's such a long answer, but did you want all of us to answer that? Okay. Sure. Well, it depends on the violations. Oftentimes, when there's an issue in an inspection, for us, more often than not, the inspector is holding the farmer to a higher standard than is necessary, and we sort of clear up what are the standards, what's required, and what's not. Sometimes if there is a violation, it's often because they didn't realize what the standards were in that respect, and so as long as they agree to correct it and not market that crop according to as CNG, then they can remain in the program. I don't think we've had any willful, serious violation, so if that were to happen, they would be removed from the program, sure.
We have two levels of non-compliance. One is an NC, one's a CNC. An NC is a non-conformance, which is paperwork, weeds, whatever that might be. You get 6 weeks to deal with that. If you haven't dealt with it within 6 weeks, we suspend you. If you haven't dealt with that within 4 weeks, we remove the seal from your farm. You're entitled to appeal against it, but you must remove it by that period in time. We have another one, which is a CNC, which is basically when the auditor leaves the farm, he calls the lead auditor, and at that point we'll decide whether we're going to suspend you immediately and whether we're going to kick you out of the program there and then, or we're going to give you a grace period to fix it. That would be related to an animal issue, i.e. a direct impact where an animal is not being treated in the way it should be, or using a substance that's prohibited. If you're suspended from the program, you can reapply after 12 months and we'll audit you at your own expense. We're ruthless. We just, for us, it's kind of, it's got to be what it is, but it's the same policy. It's depending on the severity as to how you deal with it. If it's a bit of paper, we're not going to hang you. But if it's more serious than a bit of paper, we promise you we're going to hang, draw, and quarter you.
So I think we have time for one more question.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask this question here. You mentioned that sometimes these farmers can be tricky or do whatever. So what other backup do you have outside of the honor system for, to make sure that what they're selling is pure, what it's supposed to be? Like how do you check their stuff out? Do you do sampling? Is there something else? How do you control this area?
We use satellite imagery on a Christmas tree producer. Whatever tools are available, we do. We have again, just to reiterate, we have an inspections department. We do on-farm inspections, at-market audits, and certainly we don't catch everything, but overwhelmingly the producers that are there are bringing what they're growing, and it's a very expensive catch when they don't.
Yeah. If you,
For what?
Tomato, do you ever take a tomato and test on it, or?
Well, it's hard for us. What we're trying to ensure is that the product came from our region and from the farmer that's bringing it to market. So it's hard to it's hard to taste local. It tastes better, but it's hard to use that as a determinant.
But Ulster County tomatoes taste a lot better than Sullivan County tomatoes, so that could be one way to distinguish.
I'm not going to take that one
they're
off.
going to bite on that one.
It's true. Orange County's the best, though.
Well, thank you.
We have to start breaking down, but you can, continue maybe after, it's officially closed. I wanted to thank everybody for participating. Thank to our moderator, our panelists. And please, if you want to be informed about our next events, you can leave your emails and we'll add you to our mailing list. Thank you.
Thank you.